Miss Neha Mandrukar will be taking us through CX Trends 2021. Sorry, Neha, to have kept you waiting there. But Neha handles enterprise segment for Zendesk. In the West, she works with organizations to help them provide a delightful and easy customer experience. She has more than 10 years of corporate sales experience working in various technology organizations like Oracle, LinkedIn, and Polaris. So, Neha, over to you. You have 15 minutes, ma'am.
Sure. Thank you so much, Nisha. It's been a pleasure being here, and it has been an insightful session till now. So can't wait to get started. Thank you so much, guys. Let me share my presentation.
Yeah, we see it. You can move it to the presentation mode.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah,
all right. Hello, everyone. So again, to reiterate, this is Neha Mangrulkar. I'm talking to you all from Zendesk, and I'm here to speak to you about the customer experience trends for 2021. Before we begin, I will just like to set a context as to why we drew these trends and what is it that we do with customer experience trends and how is it that we can practically implement them in our day-to-day life, especially as customer service organizations. For all of us, 2020 has been an very different ride. I don't think any of our previous generations have seen a world which saw pandemic to such a large extent, where we were under lockdown for more than a year. It was in fact a never seen before time. It was a wild ride for everyone. Everyone was stuck at home. So customers flocked online, and not just customers who flocked online. It's also our support agents were working remotely, and companies scrambled. So there was a lot of mayhem. There were a lot of cancellations. There was a lot of market volatility. There was uncertainty, and companies required to be flexible more than ever. And that's the reason why your company's success also depended on a great customer service, because your customers were online. They wanted a flexi environment. They wanted to be able to order everything online from the comfort of their home. And that's how your company's success also depended on a great customer service that you delivered. More than ever, I would like to say. As far as the studies that we drew, we realized that 75% of customers thought that CX was important when making a purchase. So while whether you're buying a piece of garment or you're buying a pair of goggles or even buying a packet of grocery, 75% of the customers thought that CX was important when making a purchase. And believe me, about 50% of them thought that they would leave your organization if they had a bad customer experience. Now, this is a tricky figure, so as to say 50% is what we see in India, but worldwide, more than 80% of the customers were ready to leave a brand if they had a bad customer experience. However, I don't think this is a need to fret for any of our organizations or customer serving organizations. It has been a time which was challenging, but we are therefore here to tell you what is it that we could learn from last year, what is it that we could adapt from last year's realities, how is it that we could change the way customers can be served while they are at home. Every year, and now 3 years in running, Zendesk has been drawing a report, a survey, by studying 90,000 customers across 175 countries worldwide. And we draw trends which basically help our organizations serve their customers better. This year, we've been able to draw 5 trends that have shown us how the world changed in the pandemic era. Let us jump straight into them. The first one was the spotlight on CX. So more than ever, customers thought that customer experience was important, and Indian firms were also more focused on customer experience. So if you see the survey says that 90% of the Indian companies thought that CX is more important than it was a year ago, and about 56% of the Indian customers felt the same. So it's not just the organizations that are selling goods to you or experiences to you, it's also the consumers that felt the same. On the bright side, Indian customers are also more forgiving. So if you see, while 80% will switch to a competitor after more than one bad experience, be it LATAM countries like Brazil or developed countries like the United States, UK, Australia. So also in India, we see that customers are forgiven easily, while they are not forgiven easily by the Western world. So 80% will switch to a competitor, whereas in India, the percentage is slightly better. So sorry, to correct what I said, worldwide, the figure is much lower. In India, 80% of the customers are more forgiving than worldwide. It's also a more conversational world today. About a year back, whenever you wanted to meet someone, you would meet them over a cup of coffee, or you would meet them over a drink. Even when you wanted to shop, you would go to a brick and mortar store. Today, of course, you can't do that. The pandemic has taught us how to shop and behave differently. And that's how we saw a rise in the digital world. We saw a rise in messaging. We saw that 93% of the Indian customers used at least one new channel support in 2020. I think Sandeep mentioned in his earlier session that his parents had started using apps that they didn't use earlier. I think that applied to my parents too. The earlier generation definitely became more tech savvy in this new world. We also see that 61% tried messaging as a support channel for the first ever time. So that was never seen before. They tried messaging for the first time, and it worked wonders for the customers. As far as messaging is concerned, India definitely led the global shift towards messaging. So if you see the figures, India is right at the end, this red dot, where we see that 60% was the shift that we saw in messaging in a country like India. And before we move to the next trend, basically what I wanted to again reiterate was, while the world changed, we were still conversing. We were still conversing with our customers. We just did it in a different setup. And that brings me to the third trend, which was emphasis on agility. Now, a couple of years back, when we spoke of agility, when we spoke of transformations, the digital transformations or conversations around digital transformations took maybe organizations took a year or two, or even more large organizations took to transform themselves digitally. However, in the pandemic, you were forced overnight to work remotely. Your agents were forced to work remotely, and so were your customers. So you had to drive the transformations faster, and that's why organizations had to be more agile. Because we wanted to drive agility, we also saw that there were many communication channels that opened up: phone, email, chat, social media. And that's how most of the organizations spoke to their customers through various channels. If you look at this graph, you will see the countries in the one in orange means deep orange, which means they used one channel; in yellow, which means they used two channels; and the faint orange, which means they used three or more channels. So India is pretty much again, it used more than two channels for sure. It also saw a rise in all these messaging apps and digital innovations. In fact, we saw in India, 69% of Indian agents used two or more channels. However, while new channels were engaged, while you provided your customers with phone, email, social media integrations, did we really make sense of those conversations is a question. Unfortunately, the answer was that Indian agents had limited access to relevant customer data, which means even if organizations used more than two channels, they weren't able to make sense of the data. all of us must have had those experiences when you call up a call center and the customers have no idea, sorry, the support agents have no idea as to what has happened in the background. They have no idea about your purchase history. They've no idea about the conversations you've had in the past, and they ask you to go on hold for innumerable minutes. Unfortunately, that is the experience that we don't want to give our customers. So while we see a positive trend that organizations are giving more channels to converse, we also see that they are not able to make sense of it, and that's how you should, try and change the way you serve customers, so that you have access to their data. This also brings me to the second last trend, which is the future of work is now. I think Sandeep again had mentioned in his session, and a lot of speakers also did. There's been a lot of talk in the last 1 year on hybrid work environments. So it's not just your customers which are working from home; it's your agents who are working remotely. What it also does is it saves you your infrastructure cost, so you can hire more support agents. You can serve your customers better because you have more support agents, and you can also make them happy because you are able to answer their queries as fast as possible. So I would say go.
I think we lost Neha there. Let's just give her a second.
Do you have any of?
We're just waiting for Neha to connect back. Apologies for that. Okay, unfortunately, she's having a tough time connecting again. So I'd like to take the liberty to move to the next session at the moment. Okay, Neha is back. She's just messaged. Sorry, Neha. I think you were on your last slide. You're on mute.
Yeah, I was on my second last slide. Sorry, guys. I could hear you, Nisha. I don't know why is it that you couldn't. Let me share my presentation right away.
Not a problem.
How much time do we have?
You have another 2 minutes max.
Okay, just a second.
Thank you. I think it's just been a general bad bandwidth day today across the.
All right. Could you see my screen? Right.
It's coming up. Yeah, we can.
All right. I think this is the last slide, the second last slide that I was talking about. As to how our work environments have changed, we're looking at hybrid work environments. I was giving an example of an Australian wireless and communication services company called Progility, and how we helped customers across industries like healthcare, energy, and many other industries, along with the internal employees, to get up and running on the services within a couple of days using Zendesk platform. So despite it being a logistical nightmare, within a couple of days, Progility was able to provide customers and the internal employees the platform and the experience that we would have seen even in a non-pandemic era. And that brings me to the last point, which is the digital tipping point. I will just like to take a step back and explain where the word digital really comes from. So while we've been talking about being digital from ages, if you see the history of the word digital comes from the word digits. Digits meaning at your fingertips, which means you want information at your fingertips. Your customers are not ready to wait for any transformational changes. While we spoke about those changes over a couple of years earlier, they wanted those changes and that agility within days and maybe even hours when the pandemic hit us. A great example of this digital tipping point was for a shipping company for us in France. It goes by the name Valeria. They operate shipping. They operate ships within Spain and along the Strait of Gibraltar. They set up their chat and messaging services just within 2 days, and the information about their boarding passes or even queries that the travelers had was easily shared via those messaging platforms, and that's how easy it was. It just took 2 days for a huge shipping organization such as them to provide the digital experience that our customers look for in these times. So in a nutshell, while 2020 has been an amusing year, an interesting year, a difficult year to many of us, it also taught, while it opened a lot of cracks, I think it also gave an opportunity for organizations to rise up to the occasion and serve their customers differently. And that's how these trends showcase that even during trying times, you can actually serve your customers. With that, I'd like to call it a wrap, and would also like to suggest that just in case you want to deep dive as to what those trends are, what those customer experience trends are, what are some of the interesting implementations that we've done worldwide, and that too in a couple of days, please have a look at the Zendesk customer experience trends report at zendesk.com/customer experience trends, and that's a very interactive report. I'm sure you all will enjoy having a look. And that brings me to the end of my session. Sorry for that glitch in between. Thank you, Nisha, for having me over. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. It's been a very eye-opening trend report that you've shared and facts that you've shared. And so is the report, free to download and anybody can download it? Our audience can?
Yes. So Zendesk.com/CX Trends is where they'll be able to get a copy of their report.
Great. We'd love to share your report as well as John's report, to the audience. Thank you so much for your time, Neha.
Thank you, Nisha. Thanks. It's been a pleasure.